They enter with conviction, always. They leave broken, always. Sounds like a description of your 200 level advanced linguistics class.
That's right.
Welcome to Clever Orbit. My name is Louis. That's Richard.
The
and
real
we are
breaking
today.
comes when I announce there will be no curve. That's the moment when they see themselves in the wheelchair.
And they have to choose to stay anyway. Yeah, that was pretty epic.
Just to give a bit of setting, Louis is joining us from inside an abandoned house.
No, it's not abandoned. It's unfinished.
Oh, okay. It's not yet abandoned.
Actually, it's pre-abandoned.
That's right. It's pre-abandoned. It's never been abandoned in the first place.
Exactly. So, yeah, through the Valley of the Shadows, huh?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Through the Valley of the Shadows.
I was hoping for, the Babylon 5 shadows to show up.
They did not. It was pretty sad.
No. It'd be quite a surprise at this point in the season.
Well, I mean, it's not beyond them, right?
No. I say what you will about the show. You are always in a state of suspense about what's going to happen. You can never fully predict.
Well,
although
you're
I did predict
always
that frozen guy was Control.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't predict that.
I predicted it.
I thought it was actually really clever what Control did. Let's start with that. So people keep comparing Control to the Borg. However, Control is more insidious than that.
Control's not the Borg.
Control. Well, clearly it's not the Borg. But anyway, so Leland and I'm going to call him Comrade Cameron.
All right.
Comrade Cameron, that's my name for him. And Arium, none of them were completely assimilated, like dominated in their expression of personality or quirks or personal preferences in the way that Locutus was. A complete domination and throttling of Picard's personality. No, in fact, each of these characters still gets some measure of expression for themselves. And I honestly believe that Cameron's real expression was coming through in the beginning. Either that or Control has just gotten much better at expressing itself. And so, like, Control, through its nanobots, is able to use these people for a certain kind of espionage work. Like, they can convince the people around them that they are, in fact, still who they say they are, but at the same time that they're pursuing its own agenda. So I think there's been I think with that 27% of the sphere data that it got last episode, it's evolved in its ability to understand and manipulate human psychology. And either the AI is fully mimicking these persons, which is even more like intense of a skill, or it's just tactically allowing the expression of elements of personality in order to achieve its outcomes. And I think that was the part where I found the most subtlety and the most interestingness in the episode when it came to Control. Also, well, go ahead. I feel like you probably have something to respond to there.
No, I agree. It's an interesting question. Is it fully controlling these people, or is it just losing control a little bit in a way that might be strategic? I think it must be losing control in some way. Or maybe it just takes a while for the nanobots to sort of take over eventually.
Well, how much control is Control exercising over the people that it controls?
Exactly.
When it's controlling
How
people.
much control is Control controlling?
How controlling is Control when it's controlling people as Control?
The answer is control.
How much control can a control when it controls control? Okay, this could go on interminably. So, there were other bits about Control that I was really disappointed with. Namely, let me complete what I appreciate. So in homage to Control, I ascribe it cleverness in that it specifically infected a ship. So I was thinking about this. I was like, does it really take time, as much time as it seemed to, for Control to distribute itself piece by piece throughout a ship? And I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that it's actually much more powerful. So, I mean, and in fact, if it does take a while to distribute through a ship, that means it's not the Control from the novel. It's not the Control that we know. In fact, there's a lot of reason to believe that with this episode they finally outed themselves.
One from the novel is 100 years later, right?
Well, the one from the novel, yeah, it is 100 years later, but it also existed for a long period of time before this, namely 200 years. And it infected every piece of technology in Starfleet. So it's ubiquitous, it's unavoidable. If it wanted to manipulate communications and technology at a large scale immediately, it could do so to a degree that this Control hasn't given evidence to. However, I don't think it's quite as bad as like it needing to distribute itself through a ship in the way that it appears to here. I think that's a tactic. I think, in fact, as we see that 30 ships at the end of the episode have been infected by Control, are basically under its control, like I think that it tactically chose to not just specifically infect a ship that contained, Burnham's old friend, but also to set a trap via Tyler that she couldn't resist, in having him tell her there's this ship that hasn't checked in. Like, obviously, if it can distribute itself through different ships, it's going to do that through all of them at once. And so this one ship appeared to not be fully infected and was left dangling as the hook or the bait on the hook to get Burnham. And it's interesting what Burnham's role is and how that works still. But yeah, that's what I have to say about Control generally, is that I like how it's working. I'm impressed. I think it's cool. I think this whole notion of being the purest form of conscious life in all of existence, what do you think of that?
I like it. If I were on the side of the machines, that would be my philosophy.
I think it's a great philosophy. I think it confirms our suspicions from a couple of episodes ago, by the way, that it's eliminating all other life so that the life that it sustains and makes to flourish is pure and unassailable. Right.
If it has achieved the ultimate consciousness, all these other creatures can only have the effect of potentially being a danger to it. There can only be one.
Kind of like the Highlander.
Well, the Highlander is not a superpower AI from the future. Highlander is just a Scotsman.
I don't actually know that much about the Highlander. I shouldn't have made that reference.
Yeah, we're going to be really embarrassing ourselves in front of all of our Highlander fan audience members.
Maybe there's one or two.
They're going to be knocking down the doors where you're at there in the Clever Orbits house. They're going to drag you out.
In the house that currently does not have an address.
That's right.
So, another piece on Control. Before we get to these gnomic aphorisms from Tenevik, the guardian of the time crystals, which makes this sound like a fantasy novel. We're really going to have to talk about
the Lord of the Rings here.
We're going to have to talk about these time crystals. Control, apparently, I think what he says is true. This Cameron guy, he talks about Section 31's threat assessment program was accelerated because of the Klingon War. And I like to believe that he makes it sound like it hasn't existed for that very long. Like, Control in the novel, it had existed for 200 to 300 years, assessing threats. In fact, that's where it started. It started in the 22nd century, 10 years before Starfleet launches Enterprise NX-01. And here he makes it seem like well, it's a new thing. They're trying it out, and they accelerated it, so it got a little better. And I decided to join up then because of the Klingon War. And so, I mean, it is what it is. I thought the tendrils were cool. I thought Spock's resolution to the fight at the end was cool. I thought his long-winded and uberly detailed apology, he was like, let me explain why I was not fast enough. That was classic quintessential Spock. I was just like, he's nailed it. The writers and the actor have nailed it. So, 30 ships. Damn. Anyway, go ahead.
That's a lot of ships.
That's a lot of matches.
Should have been 31.
No, that would have been 2 on the nose. In fact, well, anyway, the Discovery's registry number is 1031. Interestingly, people made something of that when it first came out.
We've been on to that one.
So, I mean, the episode as a whole, aside from these engagements with Control, and then we can get to the moments of compassion in a little bit, I felt like it was decent as build-up, and the Pike stuff was good. Boreth is pretty and really epic, and this whole time crystal thing is interesting. And, the Burnham story in this, where she basically has an incompletion from her recent past. She's lost her mother again, and she makes it mean something about her capacity to actually impact the universe.
And it allows her to be controlled.
Yes. So she has to resolve that, and she happens to resolve that, which is ironic, and this is referencing the IO9 review, considering Pike exercises his control over his life by accepting his fate, by saying, all right, well, this is – and you know what? So the IO9 review kind of argued, well, he has to surrender to fate, whereas she is shown that she has the freedom to not be subject to a fate. But I think they both have their fate, the part that they have to play, so to speak. And also for him, he actively chooses it, whereas he could have not. The entire universe could have changed based on that decision. And it reminds me of Llamas with Hats. What is it? Two friends. Friendship is two people munching on a perfectly cooked face together. It's like his face is literally melting in front of his face. It's kind of terrifying.
This is the horrific accident we've all been looking forward to.
I don't know that we've all been looking forward to it. Maybe you.
Oh, we've all been looking forward to it.
I'm disappointed because they didn't show us the faulty baffle plate. According to the original series, there's a single faulty baffle plate that causes delta radiation that messes with Pike. And man, his face looks so much more gruesome here than it does in the original series. However, maybe it was an added Klingon horror film touch based on the planet. But these time crystals seem intentional. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't know. I mean, because it was really well scripted as a horror film. It was a really, really great as a horror film, that experience that Pike has.
I felt like that whole deal in the Time Crystal Monastery was like a little detour in The Lord of the Rings, where the Klingons, they pretty much look like orcs or dark elves or something. And there's the time crystals, or it's like these blue things that like you might buy at like Hot Topic or something. And there's like, there was cool effects in the background though.
Yeah, the lava.
I like the bridge they went over. Yeah, the lava. I was curious about why that Klingon had hair, and then it turned out, he's half human.
Oh yeah, I mean, the Klingons have had hair all season because they're no longer at war. So they grow their hair out when they're, supposedly. At least that's something obscurely referenced in Next Gen or DS9. Now, before we get to what a time crystal is and how it works, I really appreciated when the future becomes the past, the present will be unlocked.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I mean, I kind of got it. I kind of understood. He was just talking about how to unlock the door.
I think they could have put that through a couple more iterations to make it a little more mysterious sounding.
It's like when you put something through Google Translate and you do it a certain number of times.
Your goal is to come up with something for the Time Crystal Guardian to say, and that's kind of like the first thing you come up with.
Yeah. I mean, and then the other one that was just so metal was the present. The present is a veil between anticipation and horror. Lift the veil, and madness may follow. It was just like, what? I mean, and that, if you think about Klingons time traveling or having some sort of a time travel program of any kind, that's the kind of thing you'd expect them to say, really. Something metal. Something about like, you are a badass for looking into the face of time.
It is pretty on brand.
It is pretty on brand for the Klingon. Oh, man. So, yeah, I mean, luckily madness did not follow. So that this was, for me, there were two quintessential moments of compassion here. One is where Pike chooses his own fate in his own way by reminding himself, you're a Starfleet captain, you believe in service, sacrifice, compassion, and love. And I've never had a Starfleet captain specifically say they believed in love. So I really appreciated that, because, that's it, compassion and love. I mean, it's a self-referential moment of compassion. It's the first, I think, of such a kind that we've had so far in Star Trek. And then also, Ash and L'Rell, they really love their child. And when they find out that child has a name and has flourished, it's so heartwarming. I mean, some reviewers are pissed and annoyed. They're like, Tyler's just completely useless. And, these scenes with him and L'Rell are just plus slow. No, I mean, they had a child, and that child somehow, through exposure to time crystals, evolved 34 plus years or whatever. So okay, let's talk about these time crystals. WTF?
Yeah, I mean, it must be they have an effect like a black hole of making time go, locally slower. From the outside, it looks faster, so you age fast, like in Interstellar.
So okay, so it messes with the rate of the flow of time for a certain
it's
space.
Basically a little black hole.
And here's another
without
thing.
the gravity.
In the Department of Temporal Investigations books, there was this idea of the Feynman curve. Richard Feynman?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a specific pathway through space-time that an item of matter or being takes. And you can travel back along that path. It's sort of complicated. We should look it up. This is explaining abstraction through more abstraction, actually. But the whole idea is that maybe Pike had his own Feynman curve through space-time, and when he grabbed onto that time crystal, it honed into his unique temporal signature or whatever, and that's why it showed him his future. I mean, it seems almost like an initiation. It seems almost like a fantasy novel. And it seems like that too much. So, I mean, maybe they're finally going to come back around, especially as Pike says, we were meant to be here, that you have a part to play. We're probably, and nobody knows what the signals are, who's making the signals and why they're there. So, hopefully in these last two episodes, we'll get some answer to that and some revolution back around the theme of faith versus reason, or some kind of a divine being controlling things. Huh.
A divine being from the future. Maybe there's another AI that's even more advanced than Control and even farther in the future, and it's trying to prevent Control from taking over the past because it thinks that it has an even more pure form of consciousness, and Control was just, narcissistic and hubristic and needs to be stopped.
Yeah, so that would actually be interesting if it were a battle of artificial intelligences.
Yeah. There could even be an infinite regress of artificial intelligences increasingly far into the future with increasingly perfect consciousnesses.
Yeah, and maybe the distinction is that this other AI has some measure of compassion and love for intelligent beings.
The other intelligent things aren't threats to purity. They're actually part of the magnificent jewel of conscious universe, whatever something. And so
so this comes back to our Matrix trilogy stuff. Where
exactly. The best
these
evil AI
AIs
would
is
actually
enlightened.
be beneficial to its subjects.
Repeat that?
The best evil AI would actually be beneficial to its subjects and encourage them to thrive.
Yeah,
that's how
exactly.
we extract the most energy from them.
Yes. So yeah, I think we have something to look at.
I think there's a good chance it's something like that. I mean, what are the other options? So it could be Michael Burnham's mother, like again. It could be.
Oh yeah, because maybe she hadn't made the signals yet when we meet her along her path through time travel.
Exactly. Maybe it always could be the USS Relativity. Maybe it's
the writers would be such assholes if that was what it was. Because we know that the Relativity can transporter people back through time. I mean, it's not the best idea, but like it seems like it stands to reason they would have sent someone to just like explain everything. But then again, maybe this all works out in such a way that, as we said, I think last week, that the Relativity never needs to show up.
Yeah,
it all resolves.
That's
it's
not
internally
in the cards
consistent.
Yet. Yeah, the Relativity is not in the timelines that are currently available yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe it's Michael Burnham. I predicted that before, and I was like one generation off, but I could predict it again.
I mean, maybe it is. That would be the greatest twist, right? To convince us that what we think is the truth, and then isn't, and then actually is eventually, I guess.
So we still haven't had a connection with that short track where there was that guy trapped on the ship.
In the future.
In the future where there's no one? Like, presumably that's the future, that's the post-AI future or something. And all the other short treks we've sort of connected with.
We have
right?
connections.
Like the one about
even Zahia. Even Zahia, the dilithium planet, will show up in the next episode somehow. So.
Yep. So we still haven't figured out what's up with that guy on the ship. Maybe it's the guy on the ship in the future who's like dancing with the AI and feeling bad about his wife or whatever. Maybe he's sending the signals back.
Yeah, it seems like the Discovery is hidden, though, at that point. Like, it's not able to have an overt... I kind of want to go back and rewatch that short trek.
Cannot yet take physical form. It's also possible that it's Sauron.
You mean future guy?
The metamorphosis into the Lord of the Rings is going to proceed apace. At first, we thought it was going to be a Matrix crossover. It's actually going to be a Lord of the Rings crossover.
And then I thought it was going to be a Superman crossover because Brainiac equals Control. And then I thought it was going to be, and then it turns out to not be. So the last couple things on this, the nanobots are cool. The notes of music when they first arrive on the Section 31 ship remind me of the episode The Tholian Web. And I really hoped that they were going to go full on with this and just do like that style of music straight up, because everybody in the audience would have been like, oh, yeah, I remember that. That's great. But they didn't. So that's okay. And then near the end, it's kind of scary in an epic sort of way when they say that they are evacuating Discovery. I mean, other reviewers have been like, well, why didn't they just blow up the ship? And like, well, the ship's pretty valuable. It's got a spore drive, right? And nobody else has that. So we want to do our best to preserve that, which also, so it's epic. And I was a little like moved by like, all right, we're going to blow up the ship. Because it's not as casual as like Picard and crew. They do this like 2 or 3 times in the first 3 seasons of Next Generation. You know, Picard and Riker. They're just like, well, we can't let this fall into the hands of the Binars. So, number one, let's take care of this. And Yeah, so this seems dramatically appropriate as a use of that capacity of discovery. Though, of course, how strange would it be to have a series called Star Trek Discovery where it's now Captain Pike on the Enterprise? I mean, like,
they're still discovering stuff.
I guess they're still discovering stuff, yeah. And the first 2 seasons, and then they'll just change the name. You know how they added Star Trek to Enterprise. Yeah, sure. Or the Discovery A. Yeah. They won't skip it.
The sequence is no letter and then A.
And then B. And then C, D, E, F, G. So they talk about the one line that didn't make that much sense to me, and I'm sure there's others that to people didn't make sense. I didn't work too hard to find any, really, but like plot holes. But basically what happened was there was a scene where she says, we can't jump. We can't keep jumping because they're going to follow us, right? And I was like, well, the Section 31 shouldn't be able to just, like, follow them. I mean, they don't have spore drives.
Yeah, how would they possibly follow them?
I mean, so anyway, maybe they do, and they've just never been mentioned on screen or something.
Yeah, this Section 31's got a special, like, mycelial network trace routine. I don't know. They've got, like, they put some dye, some mycelial
maybe
dye
there's enough.
On the,
maybe there's enough of control on the ship that they're able to basically follow. Maybe that's what's going on.
Control can just phone home and be like, hey, I'm here now. And then all the other ships will go over there and meet it. And they'll have a little party.
I mean, unless it goes to, like, you know, the Delta Quadrant. It seems like the Section 31 ships are limited to warp drive or warp speed.
They are.
Yeah.
They could spore drive into another galaxy.
Yeah, seriously. So anyway, that's
there's billions of galaxies in the universe.
Billions and billions of stars.
Absolutely get away.
So yeah, maybe they'll explain that. I'd like for them to explain that, but I'm not upset if they don't. So anyway, that's my full articulation of thinking about this episode. What do you got, man? What do you think about all that?
All right, so it looks like L'Rell gained some weight, especially in her face. What do you think about that?
Only the most important thing.
Do you think it's like she's not, maybe as stressed out anymore, so she started to put on some weight? Or maybe it's like when Klingons are not, in constant warrior mode, then they start to, kind of let themselves go. They need that constant danger of death to keep themselves lean, keep their body fat. There were
a lot of pretty, like, large Klingons on Deep Space Nine specifically.
That's true.
Like husky.
That's true. Well, Deep Space Nine is not really the Klingons at their best. Plus, they're wearing a lot of armor. I'm just focusing on L'Rell's face. That's the thing I'm focusing on. And she wasn't wearing any armor on her face. And her face was noticeably fatter than in previous instances.
Well, I mean, her and the actress who plays Tilly, who also got married recently.
Oh, so. Really? I haven't been watching her. Her BMI. But let's see. So they were playing. When they were sitting around, everyone's sitting around the table. They're playing the auto antonym game, which is just to name all the auto antonyms, right? It doesn't seem like a very good game. Cause it
seems like there's a limited number of auto antonyms.
Yeah, there's like 6 of them. And so once you've named all 6, how do you continue playing the game? And the game's over. It's not a very good game.
Well, maybe you go to other languages.
Okay, but even then.
It's so speaking like as a professional linguist,
you're gonna get
you probably know.
What are you gonna do? You're just gonna ask the computer.
These are like the rarest form of words or communicative, like, meme bits in any language, right? Because it's like the opposite of being useful for a meme to be its own meaning and then its opposite, right? So these are not likely to develop.
Distinction, that's the famous example, right? You know,
Or oversight.
I'd say every language is probably going to have maybe 20. That's my official linguist's estimate. That's like linguistics PhD, you know, BA, TM, R with the circle around it. It's about 20 per language. That's my estimate.
Well, so 20 times 90.
You can quote me on that. You can take
20 times 90. Saru knows 90 languages, right?
Okay.
So,
okay. Well, Saru's going to be real good at the game, and no one else will be able to play. Anyway,
yeah, so that's the thing.
So they're playing that game, and also Janet Reno's back. So where was she?
Jet Reno.
I know. it's so much fun to call her Janet Reno.
She's been hibernating. She's been sleeping this whole time.
Yeah, she was upset about the Elian Gonzalez stuff. She had to go into hypersleep there.
Oh man. So yeah, it's kind of weird that they just didn't use her all season and they just bring her back for this episode. For like,
I mean, I'm
one
sure
scene.
It's that like they couldn't contract her or whatever. But it's kind of weird that she just, you know, disappeared and now she's back and she's here to apparently save the relationship of Culver and someone whose name rhymes with poo.
In retrospect, that's much more funny hearing you say it than it was when she said it. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got.
I thought it was it was fun. It was pretty. I'm much more excited actually about next week's episode. Such Sweet Sorrow, because apparently the Discovery is really going to get exploded, or alternatively, the entire bridge crew is going to stay on in order to fight off Section 31 ships, except for Burnham, who you see is on the Enterprise in the promo. And I like the new bridge for the Enterprise. I saw that the next day, and I was like, that is so cool. Even though
they just can't leave that alone. They just can't leave that alone, can they?
Yeah, I mean, visually,
don't go on the Enterprise, man. That's your one rule, and they just can't. It's like the kid that can't stop touching the hot stove.
Well, visually, the show is completely irreconcilable with the original series now. It's just there's no hope anymore. There's no answer. There's no explanation. There's no Though in interviews, Alex Kurtzman has said for anybody who's upset about all that, things will get tied up in a nice, neat little bow by the end of the season.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking
that's what we've been looking forward to.
Yeah, everything making sense.
We've been looking forward to that moment of catastrophe when all the technology gets blasted back into the 1960s.
And there's a serious, hardcore transporter accident.
And there's a transporter accident. And the Klingons suddenly get infected with the augment virus, all of them.
All of them.
And we're waiting for it. We all live in hope. We're prisoners of hope.
So I mean, it was good. It was maybe a little long-winded in the title, Through the Valley of the Shadows. I mean, what? I guess they both.
Okay, title.
They're going through some dark spots or some dark places. Incidentally, I just finished Battlestar Galactica, so I'm really excited to watch that whole thing this year with you. Once this is over.
All right.
Yeah, I think how we'll go is finish season 2 of Discovery, then the motion picture, because we haven't done that yet.
Oh yeah,
we haven't done a movie in a long time. Yeah, and then all of Battlestar Galactica, 1 or 2 per week. That's my plan for the year until Picard comes out of the closet. Until he comes out of the closet, which is the great revelation of the new series.
I do not think. Well, I guess Picard's a different person than Patrick Stewart.
Picard is a different person.
Sure, not gay.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, have you seen the quadruple take?
No. Oh, yeah. That's how I know.
Where he's clearly high and he has his hands on his girlfriend's legs, and he's like,
yeah, no, he's had a lot of girlfriends. He does very well, and he's not gay. But maybe Patrick Stewart is. I mean, maybe Jean-Luc Picard is.
Yeah, that would be
Patrick
interesting.
Stewart.
I don't think it's going to be the plot of that show. I think he's going to he's a different person. We know that much. I can't wait to review that show. That's going to be so much better.
Is he shaken by his experiences in the vineyard?
It's just too many grapes. Too many
grapes. I'm just traumatized by the memory of so many grapes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine the quantity of
grapes. Any predictions for the next episode? Any ideas?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's see. So the signals are coming from Michael Burnham in the future. I'll just pre-register that one. Yeah, I'll just stick with that. How about you?
I think there's got to be some intelligence, but I think it would only really be cool if Control must be allowed to survive, and Control negotiates with itself via Spock or something, and Spock is like, yes, you are a legitimate form of life, and you should not be killed just because you've been acting up and treating people in a horrific way. And Control limits itself. Well, here's the thing. I wasn't so. Yeah, I do think there's going to be a computer scene. I think there should be. We've been talking about this for weeks.
Yeah, he says this sentence is false, and the AI explodes.
Well, not explodes. The AI negotiates with itself via Spock to where the future AI lets go of its attachment to things working out in this particular way, and the even further future AI is the one that develops, the one with compassion. So it's a compassionate version of Control, and that compassionate version of Control creates the red signals, the red burst, as a way to help Discovery to solve all of this, and then we also get the I was hoping to somehow work the novel into that, but I really don't think that the writers I think the writers took that one idea from the novel and they were like, this would be cool, let's do a version of this, instead of tying it together with the novel. Because if you tie it together with the novel, then you can't have a dramatic thrust with a crescendo in this season with them defeating Control. Because, what's the point? I mean, unless they really want to make it X-Files-y and really delightful through having them think they've defeated Control. But as we've also, I think, said before, at the very end, well, at the very, very end, you see that Control survived somehow, and Control will resurface. And just like at the end of a James Bond film, you have that last frame that says, Control will return. And maybe Picard has to fight Control. Maybe that's all of this is all about Control. Maybe it's all control. We still don't. Did we use that music bit? Did we use that music bit?
I can add.
I didn't go back and. We should do that because it's really good. It's so worth it. Anyway, so I liked it. I mean, it was decent. What?
Nothing.
What? Oh.
Nothing happened.
Oh, okay.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Great. So, so it's Through the Valley of the Shadows, ladies and gentlemen. I give it an 8.7. I feel like it could have been much better, but it was decent. Yeah.
Yeah, I found it decent as well. That's a good characterization.
I mean, I started thinking it was meh and decent filler or decent bridge material from one episode to another.
It felt like a lot of bridge material.
I mean, last episode was a bridge material too. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, there's a lot of bridges going on.
Yeah, so hopefully this climactic episode is as satisfying as it seems that it will be. And hopefully they get to evacuate everybody except for the bridge crew. And hopefully, Janet Reno designs the AI that becomes Zora, and the ship gets sent into the future, where Control can't find it. And maybe that's how they end up. Yeah,
Oh, they send the ship in, maybe not only into the future, but into one particularly dismal timeline where Control is not going to look. And then because it has that data, its computer just develops sentience because it has that data, and that's the AI that the dude is talking to.
Oh, that's interesting.
I bet that's it.
That would be really satisfying. That'd be really interesting. All right, well, this will have been the densest and quickest at the same time episode of Clever Orbits.
Extremely value dense.
Content rich. Well,
that's right.
Richard, I just have one thing to say to you.
What?
Don't let